good evening and welcome to this Thanksgiving week as we get started here on pjnet.tv. I'm Coach Prasick, and we are here tonight to welcome a first-time guest. He will be first-time guest number 334, if I recall. And he comes to us all the way from Georgia. And we would like to welcome to the big screen Martin Johnson, who joins us from his home in Georgia. And Martin has a story to tell. And we want to thank all of you who have joined us on YouTube. We want to thank especially those of you who are watching the program in the pjnet.tv chat room. If you're watching it elsewhere, I hope you will join us in the pjnet.tv chat room. There's some people there who want to send you a friend request on Facebook, and they want to follow you on Twitter. But Martin, welcome to PJNet. How did it work out that you stumbled onto the big screen here? Do you know somebody that knows somebody?
I know a couple of writer friends you may know, and maybe friends of PJNet. Of course, the ever popular Miss Sherilyn Bisbano.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure she's in bed right now.
Yeah. Then there's Rachel Colby, Lori Hayes. Hey, Lori.
Lori is in our chat room, and Rachel might be because she is a multitasker in the evening between Healthy Faith chat and all the things that she does. In fact, she just signed into our chat room. Welcome, Rachel, and several others. Our family is all there. Martin, you say that you know some writer friends, but you are, well, you're a writer, but you don't have a book yet, but you certainly do have a story. So let's start there. What's so peculiar about Martin Johnson that people need to know?
Actually, there are a couple of things about me. I'm a traumatic brain injury survivor, first of all, which means I suffered a traumatic injury to my brain, causing massive damage. And because of that, I am legally blind. The entire left side of my body is numb. And every now and then, if you listen to me talk, I'll have a slight speech impediment.
Well, I haven't noticed it up to this point, Martin, but that's quite a bit of infirmity to deal with. You seem like a young man. As I understand it, everything was going great. You were 22 years old. You had your whole life in front of you, and then suddenly things changed.
Yes, sir. In a blink of an eye.
Share with us that day.
Well, it was actually Easter Sunday in 1997. I had just gone to Books A Million to buy my mother a birthday card because her birthday was on April 1st. And as I was heading home to my apartment from Books A Million, I was going through an intersection, and it had been raining, and an 18-year-old in a 1998 Dodge Ram pickup truck ran the red light and T-boned my Mustang. Now, I've heard two stories about what happened. You know, originally I was told that the truck came through the passenger side of my Mustang and hit me in the right side of my head, shattering my skull. And then later I heard that what happened was the impact of the truck jolted the car, causing me to lean forward, and the right side of my head hit the gear stick in my Mustang with the force. And that force shattered the skull. And what that is called is, what they call that is an open head injury, because the skull is actually penetrated and an object actually goes into the brain.
Ugh.
So they have closed head wounds, which is kind of like a concussion.
Right.
Or even a stroke. Or maybe a fierce shaking of the head, which causes the brain to shake around inside the skull, causing damage. But an open head wound is when the skull is actually shattered and an object entered into the brain itself.
You sent a
So
picture. I don't know who took this, but it looks horrifying.
that is actually where the object hit my head, shattering my skull, which caused all the bone fragments to go into my brain. And that brought about a need for emergency brain surgery. And while the doctors were pulling out the bone fragments, I had 15 mini strokes and stroked out. Now, if you don't know what stroking out means, it means you die. So what happens when I had those 15 mini strokes, the right side of the frontal lobe of my brain basically became null and void. They could get no. If you've heard the term brain dead,
Mm.
the right side of my frontal lobe, there's no brain activity. So from that standpoint, I was partially brain dead.
Hey, you said that you had been told two different accounts of what happened. I take it that you don't remember much.
The last thing I remember on that Easter Sunday was walking out of Books and Me with my mother's birthday card in my hand and getting into the car. That's the last thing I remember. Next thing I remember is a week and a half later waking up in the ICU with my family and friends around me.
A week and a half.
A
That
week and a
is a
half.
long time to spend in ICU. At the time, what was the prognosis for you?
Well, from what they told my family was I would be a vegetable for the rest of my life and I would never walk. I wouldn't be able to talk. So basically, my life was over. But fortunately, at the time, I had one of the best neurosurgeons in the world at the hospital at MCG in Augusta, Georgia. And he did a procedure called a frontal lobe lobotomy. If you've ever seen the movie One Flew Over Cuckoo's Nest,
Mm-hmm.
back then this was a treatment for schizophrenia. What they would do would be cut part of the brain out in hopes that the brain will rewire itself and do away with the schizophrenia.
I studied
So what they,
psychology, and it's almost like they separate the hemispheres, in the left and right brain, the synaptic, blah blah. Okay, well, tell us what was your life trajectory like prior to that event? Where was your career headed? What were you doing?
I was actually, and this is ironic, I was actually in college majoring in English to be a writer. And the funny thing is, I knew the mechanics of writing, English grammar, punctuation, and subtext and all that. But I always told my friends, I just don't have anything to write about. Yeah,
Um,
and I remember now at that time I was away from the church, but I remember praying like, God, I need a story to write about. Give me a story to write about.
be careful
And
what you pray for. Yeah. Mm.
so I had that accident, and my life has been completely different. Before that accident, I was actually ambidextrous.
Hmm.
I was playing the guitar. I was a gamer. I was one of those guys who would go to the arcade, put a dollar or two worth of quarters in the machine, and just spend hours just playing games, doing all the little super moves. But after the accident, because of the brain injury, my reflexes and my eyesight and all that aren't the same. So I stopped gaming. When I couldn't do all the special stuff and be the quality gamer I used to be, I put it down. Now I tried to play the guitar again for a while till I bought a brand new guitar And I was just like, okay, this is going to be cool. But the problem is because the brain injury on the right side of my brain affects the left side of my body. So I have no fine tuned motor skills in my left hand.
Okay.
I cannot type. I cannot floss. Any fine tuned motor skill with my left hand, I cannot do. I cannot tie my shoes. Nothing. So I had to relearn everything with the right side, which wasn't as bad because I'm right-handed. But now,
Although ambidextrous, you were primarily right-handed.
exactly.
You ever get to meet the driver of the other vehicle?
I did not. It was one of those things because I was in ICU for a week and a half, but I was actually in the hospital on in the brain injury ward for like I think it was about a month. And then after that, I was moved to a rehabilitation hospital. That was another month. And after that is something that you talk about being humbled. And I mentioned earlier when I messaged you that I want to share something I'm ashamed of. Now, during that time in college, I lived off campus in an apartment with my roommate, and just down the road from us was our favorite dance club. We would go dancing. And as we leave the dance club, or the apartment of the dance club, there would be a building in between our apartments and the club that we would pass. And every now and then you'd see people outside in the yard. There might be somebody in a wheelchair every now and then. And me, I was a college kid, me and our roommates was like, yeah, look at, I'm going to say the word, and I hate this word. Yeah, look at those retards over there.
Hmm.
And didn't think anything about it. Now, when I was in rehab, I learned about something called a TLC. Are you familiar with that?
No, sir.
A TLC is a transitional living center. It's where people who have had an injury go for a short amount of time where they can be watched in everyday normal environments. Right. And guess what that building was that I used to that I ended up in there. It was a TLC. So God put me in there. I learned the hard way. So that was humbling.
Well, you were studying to be a writer, looking for something to write about. Several years go by, apparently. This has been several years back. The initial prognosis was bad. How has the years since then been for you?
Hey, there are some good years. There are some bad years. But physically, I'm in better shape now than most people half my age. I
could say the same thing.
I can bike 50 and 60 miles at a time. I will run at a top speed of 13.5 miles an hour. And that's nowadays at my age. That's some years removed from that.
How old are you, David? Or Martin?
I'm in my 40s. Approaching the half century mark.
Really?
But
I wouldn't put you anywhere near there.
Next month I will celebrate the big 48.
48.
But
okay, so you're 47 at the moment.
Right.
By the time people see this, you might be 48. You never know. It's on YouTube. They could watch it a year from now.
But
so you've stayed very active, and I'll go beyond that. You're actually very athletic if you're pushing yourself to those kind of metrics.
Well, what a lot of people don't realize is when you push yourself like that, when you get your heart rate up, it actually increases the oxygen levels in your blood,
mm-hmm.
which increases oxygen flow to the brain, which
mm-hmm.
is better for the brain.
Mm-hmm.
You can actually make your heart grow I didn't know this until a few weeks ago that doing the type of running I do, it makes the left ventricle in your heart bigger, which makes your heart stronger, like any muscle.
Yeah.
The harder you work it, the stronger and bigger it gets. And all of that helps compensate for the brain injury.
Hmm.
I'm getting more oxygen into the brain.
So cognitively, athletically, you're doing great. Cognitively, you're doing great. Although you say you're legally blind. Um, Here's a question. How did this impact your life spiritually?
That is actually been a blessing because for after growing up in the church for 6 years, even before I went to college, I had walked away from the faith. Actually, in college, I was actually I was a seeker. I was dabbling in Hinduism, Catholicism, and having that accident, when you're humble to that point, you have nowhere else to turn but to God. Because man was telling me, hey, your life's over. You're not going to walk. My body was telling me, hey, you're broken. So I had no else to turn but to God.
How about
Yeah.
socially? How did this impact your friends?
Well, I still, believe it or not, I still keep in touch with a lot of those friends. I went to their graduation. They graduated from college, which I didn't get to do because of the brain injury. And I'm still close to them. I don't go out and party and all that. They've moved on and have families and careers now, but they didn't really push me away. They understood because they were there in the hospital with me. If
Okay.
you go on my YouTube channel, there's a video that my best friend at the time video because they knew I wouldn't remember and that he videotaped me in the hospital
Mm,
in
interesting.
the ICU.
Well, in the next couple of minutes, tell us what your future looks like.
Future is in the hands. I don't know. I don't know. With a brain injury, you don't know how you're going to feel from day to day. I mean, this past Saturday, I was in the pits. I'm like, I'm not going to church tomorrow. I want nothing to do with life. Then I woke up Sunday morning. I'm like hitting the ground, running 100 miles an hour. I'm filming YouTube videos, and I'm going to church, and then I'm going to the gym. So with a brain injury, unfortunately, you just don't know what's going to happen. I know what I would like to see happen. Maybe get a book published. And my long time goal is to eventually relocate back to Colorado Springs, where I used to live growing up.
I think you said you had met some of the people that we know in common at the Blue Ridge Mountain Christian Writers Conference. So it sounds like that's an ambition to write. And have you already written and you're just looking for a publisher, or how far along are you in that journey?
I've already written books, been edited. I've actually got like 5 or 6 books already researched and ready to go. But my first book is written and ready to go, and it's kind of a expression of my journey, how God has humbled me from being the cocky college kid to being disabled, having to rely on everybody else
Mm-hmm.
for basic things, and returning to the faith.
We're really running short on time. We should wrap up, but I do want to take an extra minute to tell us about your screenwriting.
Screenwriting is more as for inspirational stories for the general market. I don't feel led to write for the Christian market for for screenwriting, but maybe think like Chariots of Fire
Mm-hmm.
or lines that inspirational stories for the general market that will encourage people and maybe, just maybe, point them towards faith in God.
Well, Martin, you have overcome enormous challenges. And looking at the chat room, J.D. Winninger says this: "You're doing great, Mr. Martin. We're proud of you." I think he said it better than I could. It would be easy to give up. You haven't done that. It would be easy to become bitter. You haven't done that. And that in and of itself is an inspiration and something that we all can. Unfortunately, many of us don't draw upon that strength that you have found within yourself until a circumstance like that. And I won't give one of my keynote speeches, but I adversity tends to either make us bitter or make us better. And it's a choice it's a choice. It's not the adversity, it's our reaction to it. And sometimes that reaction is acute, sometimes it's more chronic. And for you, it probably was a combination of both. But Martin, you've been, what an inspiration. You have inspired all of us, and we just wish you the very best in whatever God has in your future. And we certainly appreciate you sharing with us here tonight.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for the opportunity.
All right. What a story. Martin Johnson. I hope that none of us have to face the cards he's been dealt, but if we are, I hope that we can play those cards that we've been dealt as well as he has. And what an inspiring story. Folks, in just a few moments, Casper from the great state of Colorado will be joining us, and I've got to get things ready for him. While I'm doing that, I challenge you to ask yourself these two questions. Here's the first one. What is the boldest thing that you have ever done for Jesus Christ? And second question, when was that? The challenge is to never be satisfied with either answer.